Hello, this is Professor Bustillo-Booth, and this is a video tutorial on how to create your professional networking map using Microsoft Office Word. This will be one of two activities you will need to do in order to complete the assignment. The second activity is to complete the form that is available in Canvas within the assignment itself. I will go ahead now and change screens so that we can work on Word. Okay, we'll go ahead and launch a new document which will automatically orient to the portrait position, and we'll want to change that into the landscape position so that we can work with the entire document. So you go to page layout, orientation, landscape, and if it's not already in 100% view, you'll want to do that with view, zoom, and 100% so that you can work with the entire document. Before we go much further, let me go over what it is what we're trying to accomplish. You are creating a professional networking map of your current connections so that you can assess the strengths and possible weaknesses you may have now. And to do that, we need to graphically illustrate what your connections are now and how they're related to each other. This will then help you address the kinds of networking holes or gaps you might have, and so that you can develop a form of action, which will be the work of part 2 in this assignment. In order to create the networking map, we will need to use certain functionalities within Word, and primarily you will use this insert function and followed by shapes, and then working with the oval shape as well as the one-sided arrow and the double-sided arrow. Other tools are going to come up once you start inserting objects, and the one that we will be using there will be called the format, and I'll walk you through once that comes up. So the first thing we're going to do is create the center of the universe, and that will be you, and we'll use insert shapes, click on the oval, which basically is telling Word that you want to draw an oval, and a plus cursor will come up, and you will depress the left-hand click on your mouse or whatever the equivalent is on your mouse pad on your laptop, and you will just draw a circular object. Okay, and you can see that you can be circular or flat, or it doesn't really matter. And then you will locate it somewhere in the middle of the page, and you'll see that you've done that because these two green vertical and horizontal lines will show up. And then you will let go, and then you will type in the word me. And the reason why you write me as opposed to your name is because it's going to be peer reviewed anonymously, and so we don't want your name there. All right, and then the next thing we're going to do is to start placing or mapping our naturally occurring networks or cluster groups, right? And so that could be your work, that could be school, it could be your family, social media. For the veterans, it could be the military family, and perhaps places of worship or other organizations. And so we're just going to draw the groups now, represented by oval shapes, and each of those shapes will need to be a different color. And now that I have a shape in the middle here, I can actually draw other shapes through the copy and paste functions. But let me go ahead and do the insert again so we have a review of how that's done. You click the insert, click the shapes, click on the oval, and then depress the left-hand side of your mouse to create an oval in this case, or a circle. And then you'll see that the format function came up with the different things that you can do with this shape. In this case, you can have it to be, different colors, that sort of thing. And just to illustrate that there are going to be other colors that you can use, you go to the shape fill right here, and you can do more fill colors. And for fun, I'm just going to pick, pink. And in this case, this cluster group is going to be called work. Now, if you don't want to click insert, shape, and so on, and you just want a shortcut, what you do is you click one of the shapes you want to copy, and then you're going to use the Control-C function. Control is CTRL, the lower left key on your keyboard, CTRL, and you press C at the same time, and that makes it copy. It makes it a copy function. And then you do Control-V, which makes it a paste function. You see that it showed up. And in this case, we already have work. So we're going to type over and say, I'll say school. And you can see there's not enough shape. So I'm just going to pull that so it shows up. You know, in this case, say, for example, Pierce College. And you see that format came up and, you know, changed the color. In this case, I'm just going to choose pink. That way you have different colors that you're working with, right? And then, again, you can, instead of going to insert shape, you can just go ahead and copy an existing shape and paste it. In this case, let me say, I'm going to make this family. And make sure that you change the color for each, right? And you want to make sure that you do not use the color green for this example, because the color green will be used for something else. Okay, so no color greens. Going on with the other different clusters group, you could choose, for example, social media. All right, I just copy and control paste here. And then also do other groups. And again, you want to make sure everything has a different color. So just go to format and change that color. And I just fast forwarded here to show you that you can also put other cluster groups like the military and place of worship, okay, or other groups. This is just an example. The next thing we're going to do then is connect these clusters to us by using the insert function, shape, and that arrow. And again, a cursor will show up to show that you're ready to draw. You will depress that to start with you. You can see that the arrow has shown up, and then, you know, get to the point where you want to connect. Okay, and you will do that for each of these. So you will have arrow pointing to each of them. Okay, so you can see that the arrows are now pointed to each of these cluster groups. The next thing you're going to do is to draw the individuals that we have connections with in the group that they belong to. So for example, in work, you want to draw individuals represented by initials that you have a meaningful connection with. So you don't want to draw everybody in your workplace, because you may not actually have spoken to everybody in your workplace, but you have, you know, to a degree to which you have a relationship or connection with beyond, say, a passing hello. Because I already have a circle here that's pink, and I want everybody at work to be pink, I'll go ahead and copy and paste that. I'll change the size to be smaller so that it represents individuals within my cluster group called work. Okay, I'm just adjusting the size here. And I'll just keep doing that until I have, you know, the people that I believe are my significant connections at work are represented. And I will do this for each of the cluster groups, right? And for some cluster groups, that could be quite a few. And you might be wondering how it is that a family can have, you know, connections. Well, there might be people in your family that are connected to different industries. You'll want to put them out here, okay? After you have created your bubbles, I guess, your ovals for each of the cluster group, you know, you'll start to see your network. And so social media, for example, some of you may have 500 connections. I would argue you do not actually have significant relationships with 500 of those folks. And so you're going to have to pick and choose. Greatest connections, your strongest connections. And some of you, that could be 10, and some of you could be 4, or whatever number. But you'll have to make some decisions about how you do that. The other thing you can do is you can just sort of have subgroups. So instead of individuals within your social media, you put in here, there could be groups. So for example, in my Facebook, I have groups of people that belong to, you know, the high school that I went to, or people that I work with. So you could do that. You could go ahead and have satellites, say, for the social media world, but it's really best to identify specific individuals. So this is relatively what it looked like. For some of you, you may have more along this end, here or more on this end. So no two networks are going to look the same. After you have mapped out, individuals in your network, you will then need to draw arrows that represent their relationship within this world to you, right? So, for example, you go to insert and you will then choose, let's say, a double-sided arrow because WB and WC know each other well. Or it could be that it's, and I just drag that at school, and this could be your professors, they work in the same department or something like that. So you will put double arrows. In some cases, it's just a single arrow. You'll click your single arrow, and you just do that. They're just connected to school, and the SA may not necessarily know SB very well. You will start drawing these arrows to illustrate their relationship. And it might be the case where, some folks will cross over. And so while WC may not be connected to your school directly, the school might have a contractual relationship with WC. So there could be an arrow that points that way, or it could go the other, both directions. Okay, and so you'll just draw all these arrows and the relationships, and you might find, for example, that that's going to be quite the arrows pointing one way or the other in your social media, because a lot of people actually know each other in social media or not, but then you'll understand the relationship. So you'll just draw all those arrows. After you've drawn your arrows, it might look something like this or another, but the idea is that there are arrows pointing in different directions. Of course, several of these directions may go across your network clusters. So for example, in the case of where a family member is also in your social media, you might go ahead and draw a double-ended arrow there. Or somebody if you are a vet, for example, you may have someone there also in your social media, or someone for your place of worship who is also, goes to your work. So you'll start seeing that these arrows are going to point across, or going to be connected across, your different clusters. So for example, it would not be unusual that perhaps there are people in your, in school that are in your social media, but not necessarily connected to anyone specifically in the social media. So you would just point that into your social media world. So this will get pretty complex. You can see in this fast-forwarded version of that same hypothetical network map clusters that are interconnected. So you can see the family members are in social media, military members are in your social media, and there may be connections across the family cluster group and your school. And so this can get fairly complex. Here's another hypothetical network map where it's fairly simple. So I just want to illustrate that your network map can really suggest where your connections are now. So in this case, for example, we have social media, family, school, and work. And if you look very closely, the social media connections are primarily of family members and maybe some individuals in school in this case, but there are few connections in the work cluster, and they do not necessarily cross over. So that can be revealing as to the strength of your network. I mean, I'm not suggesting that individuals of your work should be in your social media. That's not necessarily appropriate in all instances, but it can at least reveal to you that what you may need to work on. So in here I've clustered social media, all of social media, but social media can also be LinkedIn, which is a professional network, right? And you can separate that. In fact, you can just put social media professional and social media personal, where that might be like Instagram or Facebook, where you might limit your contact to certain individuals. So this will be fairly important for you to see what the current dynamic of your network will be, and so that you can address what you might need to do in order to strengthen your network, in order to have the kinds of connections you need to go on your intended career pathway. Okay, so I'm back to the hypothetical that was drawn earlier, so we can move into the next step in putting together your professional network map against, for example, a career field that you're interested in. So the next step you will need to do, regardless of what your network map currently looks like, and it needs to be an accurate representation of what it currently is to then draw an oval. And in this case, it will be the green oval. That's why we've reserved that color here. And you see that the format function came up. We're going to make that green. And in here, we will write, the field that you're interested in. In this case, I'll say marketing. Okay. And so I have this oval shape out here for help me kind of map who I might currently know in my network who might be related in marketing, in the marketing field in any way. So for example, I might say, that FB is a marketing manager. And so I'll grab an arrow, in this case, a one-sided arrow, pointing FB to marketing. And I'll want to make sure that arrow is green. And you can see that these arrow colors or line colors came up, and I'll just choose green here so that I can differentiate it from the other colors that are on this sheet. And then you will go and look across here to see who might else be in this case marketing. It could be different for you. If you like healthcare, for example, you can put a bubble here that says healthcare. So then you'll just go to each of your clusters and take a look and see, I think that instructor teaches marketing. So you'll go ahead and point that arrow towards marketing. You're now identifying a network connection that can help you perhaps in the marketing field. And this is why it is really important that you actually choose individuals you have a connection with currently. I mean, as your network develops, you can add other people in there, and your relationships develop, you can add them. But we really are looking at, the current strength of your network given your field of interest. So you'll just do this until you've exhausted your understanding of who in your current network might be connected to the field that you're interested in. After you've carefully examined and mapped the individuals in your current network to your intended field, you might discover that you need to grow your network. So in this case, it's marketing. And you may be thinking to yourself, how can I expand my network? Well, one way to do that is to join, if you're not already in LinkedIn, join a LinkedIn marketing group. And then you'll need to request to join that group. And you don't necessarily need to participate in the group actively, but what it will do is allow you to be a fly in the wall and listen in on discussions so that you become familiar with the kinds of terms that are used in that field. So you understand what they mean, and you'll know how to use them, and also be able to see who might be active there and click on their names and take a look at their sort of story and how they got to the positions that they're in, so you can recognize the kinds of, what the path forward might be for you in that field. What you'll do then is to illustrate your plan. You can copy and paste this, and it'll be green in this case, right? And you'll want to keep them green, in this case lighter, and you'll see that the letters here are now difficult to see, and then you'll just change that to a darker color like black. Okay, and for those of you who may have issues with the color green on the screen, go ahead and choose another color that is not what is already on your sheet. And then so in this case, you'll keep this here, and you'll just change the border through shape outline, go to dashes, and make a dashed border to signify that this is not currently in your network, right? And you'll want to identify specifically the group that you are intending to join. So I'll just say LinkedIn marketing, okay? And it may not be the only group. You may have, several strategies there, and you might, for example, if you were interested in marketing, might go and join in on the American Marketing Association. and other, or the Chamber of Commerce in the in town. And then you'll just connect those with arrows with showing your intent to build bridges, right? And I'll make sure that's a green arrow, so that you have you will build over time your network that allows you to have connections that will then bridge where you currently are in your network to the field that you intend to go into. This ends the first part of the assignment. The next thing you will need to do is to complete the form that is in Canvas. It will ask you questions about the strengths of your network, the gaps, and what your plan will be moving forward, so that you can have a network that works for you. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you have questions for me, please reach out to me on Canvas. I'm happy to help. Thank you.